Oh, shalom, my friends, shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And how delighted I am to have this lovely, smiling fellow in front of me. And look, we're dressed alike. Great minds, I think, great actors think alike. Because this man, you're going to want to see him act. He's in an off-Broadway show called Tide, Tied, that you're going to have to go see. That is going to be playing, where is it? Wait, I had it, at the Alpha Omega Studio on East 4th Street from early March through to late March. Let me tell you about Jason Carmichael. He has been mostly in the Houston area. He's acted at the Alley Theater. He's done a bunch of shows at the Ensemble Theater, which is dedicated to African American plays. But the main thing about Tide is he won the Houston Press Best Actor Award for the show that he's now doing in New York. As a matter of fact, reviewing the play, Houston Press wrote, "The piece leaves one breathless with awe and appreciation of both actor and author." So my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, how we are fit to be tied to Jason Carmichael. Shalom, Jason!
Hello, my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being with us, and Mazel Tov on the show, which this play, Tide, has been in development for at least half a decade. I seem to remember, I saw something about it in 2020. Does it go back even before then, or when?
My involvement is about the last 4 years. I would say maybe 5 years. It started, Crystal Ray, the playwright, had a reading of it, and that's how I first got involved. And I think that first reading was about 5 years ago, and then we had several other readings, and we filmed certain sections of it. And then ultimately we had some producers interested in doing the full show as a production. And I was like, as a production, you mean not reading? Because it was so dense. I was like, I was a little afraid, but it was a wonderful challenge. And that every time we've done it, it's led to another opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's just been a great ride. Yeah. And we, most recently.
Yeah, please. Where was it before? It's been in Houston, but yeah.
It's been in Houston. And then in November, we were in the United Solo Festival in New York.
Yes.
And Crystal won Best Emerging Playwright, and I won Best Actor of the festival. And then it was there that the producer from Alpha Omega Theatrical Dance Company saw the show, which has led to this 3-week run that's coming up.
Now, is there dance in the show? I'm a little surprised that it's Alpha Omega dance. It's not just the space, but is there any dance in the piece?
Not really. I mean, there are some moments where my character Daniel, he's hearing an ancient song in his head. In his sleep, in his dreams, whenever he cuts on the water.
This happens to me all the time.
And so when those exactly, so when those drums come in from the ancient song that he hears, he does dance, but it's not a dance piece. Alpha Omega has a program called Share the Stage, where they bring in theatrical selections to kind of augment their season during this time of year. And we were selected to be a part of that Share the Stage experience.
By the way, I want to say Mazel Tov on this. I do want to say that we hear you just fine. Visually, you're kind of voguing. So at least we have the audio that's working okay. It sounds, if this is bothering people watching at home, make believe it's radio. Just say,
yes, I apologize for that.
Yeah, we tried it in another room. We tried it in an outhouse in a gas station. It just didn't work there either. We tried to. This is, at least we have a nice visual, and you look really great. So we're gonna go with what we got. At least we hear you just fine. But we haven't spoken yet about the unfortunate, sad story that the play Tide is based upon. So please, who do you play, and what is the context of the show?
My character's name is Daniel, and it's a fictionalized account of one of the fathers of one of the four little girls that was killed in the 1968 church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, um, which is known as the Four Little Girls. There were four little girls that were in the bathroom, and the church was bombed, and they were killed. And so this story imagines the grieving process of one of the fathers of the four little girls. So although it's based on historical events and the research has been drawn from the different fathers of the different little girls, the composite is kind of a fictionalized character that is the father of one of these little girls. And so the play it's kind of a memory play, and it's also rooted in now and looking toward the future, because he experiences the bombing and then going through the grieving process. His initial impulse is to get revenge against the men that killed his daughter, but his faith presents an obstacle to that solution. And so it's really about how he deals with the grief without resorting to revenge and violence, and what he has to kind of unpack in his life with his family and his remaining daughter, who is still alive, and his wife. So he's trying to be present for his family, and yet how
And
does he
yet
mourn the loss of
grieve
his
and
daughter?
want revenge and all that, and be religion is keeping him from doing the kind of revenge that he wants. He should be Jewish, because Jews would say eye for an eye. Just go kill him and then go with your family, go have a picnic. The problem is he's Baptist, so this is it's a very. But do you buy? I'm sure the play makes a very convincing case of the journey that he goes through. But if God forbid, do you have children? Jason, do you have
I
any?
do have a son, yes.
So I only want to ask the question
I
when I
have
think you
one.
know the. Yeah. If God forbid, would religion keep you from striking down?
It would be a very difficult decision if it was, yes, if it was something that was caused by an individual or some individuals. In the moment, I would say I would react impulsively and do whatever I needed to do. And ultimately, I like to think of myself as a man of peace, and I would have to pray on it really hard to try to make that choice as opposed to just responding organically. But it would be difficult. And I can't say that I would be able to do it like Daniel did, because there comes a point in the play when he is actually confronted with one of the men who he knows put the dynamite in under the church and blew up the little girl's bathroom. And he's standing in front of his house. And so the second act is about him making plans to kill this man. And not to give too much away, but
Yeah.
those plans are thwarted because he realizes the damage it could do to his daughter that's still living and his wife. And so that's where I say, in that moment on the porch when he saw him, the impulse was to kill, and he attempted to do so.
Oh,
But
yeah.
memories of his baby girl that he hadn't had for a while slow him down. And so that's kind of how it unfolds from there.
This sounds like a hell of a play. We want to remind people that it's called Tide, and it's a one-person show. You're a man. You're one man show. We can't even use man, woman anymore. You're a man, right? Man.
Yeah.
Yes. One man show, and it's being
One-man
done
show.
at the Omega Studio on East 4th Street, starting on March 6th and running through March 22nd. So let me ask you. The journey that, as you've said, you've been with the play for 4 years. How has it and you changed, if at all, from post reading, when it was what it is now, but have there been changes, cuts, revisions, etc., or changes to your performance over the past 4 years?
Mm. Well, there certainly have been cuts. Even when we first started putting it together, we wanted to come in at it's an hour and a half with no intermission, and so the original cut was longer than that. And in the original cut, the character actually kind of forms an organization similar to the Black Panthers, and there's a whole section on their planning and all of that. And in the process of getting ready for the first production, I felt that we didn't need to we needed to stay with Daniel and his process of grieving and healing, not not the detour into the organization and the revolution type of material, which is valid and still in the book. But I didn't think it was the through line that we wanted to follow. And so that was one major way that it changed. I do play multiple characters, like everybody in that I talk about, from my three brothers to my father to my daughters to my wife, all of those people. But there was also a point in the beginning where, after we'd done several readings as a one-person show, some of the feedback was maybe the author should try it as a multiple cast character regular
More
play,
traditional, yeah,
more
plots.
traditional. But there was enough pushback from the other side that no, it's so powerful as it is. So she played with that idea for a while, and there was a version that had multiple characters, and we read that a couple of times, but she went back to the one-man show format because that seemed to be the strongest and worked the best. And then the performance of it's been such a mountain. So I mean, literally the first time I did it, I got sick. And we had to postpone the opening for 1 week. And I am convinced that it was such an overwhelming process that I got sick. And so, but once we got over the mountain and did it, and it was so well received, and I kind of got it in my bones. I was like, okay, I was able to climb that mountain. So that was the challenge of the beginning, was just, as an actor, can I do this? Can I do it the way that I see it in my mind, and make this
And then,
beautiful theater come to life?
not to make a too obvious pun, but you have been to the mountaintop. I mean, it's not a pun,
Exactly.
really. It's a call out, but you get it. You know. But here's
Absolutely.
the other thing. If you're playing all these different characters, like what is your key to like flip from, say, the dad to one of the daughters? Do you usually just have to do one thing that cues the either with your voice or with an inflection, or like to go from one to the other like this?
Yes, and sometimes it is just that quick within the same conversation.
Right.
I'm going back and forth, and so sometimes there's a trigger a word or a gesture. For example, my character's father, in the original production, one of the pieces of business that we had was that he whittled. He was whittling, and so when he would come to the fore, there'd be the whittling, and then my character was maybe doing something, drinking a Coke or reading the paper or what have you. And then for my daughter that's deceased, one of the things that kind of came up in the initial rehearsal process was that we have a doll that was my daughter's doll, but that I have kept and kind of represents the daughter. So the doll became a very important tool for me, because at first Crystal, the author, she did not like the doll. We had the costume designer made the doll, and it's kind of like let's say like a black Raggedy Ann doll, just as an example. So Crystal, the playwright, she didn't like the doll because she thought it looked like a tar baby.
Oh, yeah.
She just was against the doll. But then they kind of put some eyelashes on her, and they got and they got her cute, and then once she kind of saw how I was able to work with the doll, because it really helped me, and then she now, she has a hard time giving up the doll.
Of
I'm
course.
gonna have to get it from her when I come to New York again because she loves the doll, but it became an integral part of the show. So that was one of my triggers to help me get into my daughter, or even looking at it, because we have the set. There's two rocking chairs, my rocking chair and then the little child's rocking chair that the doll sits in. And so there were different times when I use the doll, pick up the doll, talk to the doll, or the doll serves as a reminder to kind of help me transition into, another moment, another character.
And what about your voice? When you're a girl, do you have a specifically, very significantly, do you go, I like it is, or what? Or what?
Very much so. The
Oh,
voices
yeah.
are different. Yes, yes. So my wife's voice, my father's voice, both daughters' voices, I try to make them um, appropriate to the character. There are kind of incidental characters, the perpetrators of the crime. Um, Another gentleman who's kind of helps me throughout the play. Um, there's a moment where after the bombing, where I'm trying to just keep on with life as usual, and I go back to work the next week, but I don't have on my tie, because one of my last memories of my youngest daughter was when she was telling me that she was reading a book in her class. Her teacher has this book, and it has different cultures from all over the world. And in none of the pictures of the people from Africa did she see anybody wearing a tie. And she's like, not even the chiefs, And so she was saying maybe where we come from, they don't wear ties. And so this sticks with the father, and they kind of get rid of a lot of his ties. So when he goes back to work after the bombing, he doesn't have on his tie. And everybody in the office mentions it. He's chastised by his boss, and he kind of goes to the Sears to get a new tie. But while he's doing that, he's having this. It's the beginning of his breakdown, and so it's a very powerful kind of symbolically
Yeah.
the tie and how that memory from his daughter changes him.
Oh, yeah.
And
Just this moment, it occurs to me the name of the show is Tide, which,
that's where it comes from.
yeah,
Yes.
oh, a totally different idea. Got it. Wow. It's all these different
Yeah.
things. I love in
So
90 minutes. It goes in all these places. Let's talk about some of the other stuff
absolutely.
that you have. We'll get back to Tide and keep encouraging people to see it. But you've been an actor for many years, right? In fact, you studied acting at Howard University. You got your bachelor's there. So what were one or two of the most important things that you learned in terms of performance or theater itself or any or life when learning at Howard?
Oh, well, it was a wonderful experience for me. I My brother was 3 years older than I am. He went to Howard. My father went to Howard Law School, so it was kind of in the family. And I grew up in Houston in a predominantly white neighborhood from when I was two all the way up until when I went to college. So I really wanted to, and predominantly white schools at that time, which you could have public schools that were predominantly white. Now, not so much. It's, times have changed. But at that time, our neighborhood, my schools were predominantly white. And I wanted the experience of going to a Black university. And I knew Howard's reputation, and particularly in their theater department and their alumni. And so it was a choice I'm very glad I made. I would say, in terms of what I learned, one of the best things I learned, we had, of course, different professors every year, and they each had a different line of teaching. So one of my professors was very Stanislavski and beats and the method and all of that. And then I had another professor who was very, very spiritual. His whole approach to acting was out of body transcendence and spirituality, meditation. And that was very impactful for me. One of the things that he taught was living in between the breaths, that between the inhale and the exhale is the true you.
See, for me, between
And
the
so that
inhale and
was
the exhale is a little bit of vomit and a headache. So I've got to be very careful with, yeah, yeah. It's just phlegm, just
exactly,
constant phlegm. So,
exactly.
but it's great that you got the two polar, well, they're not polar opposites, but that they're very different approaches to just giving a believable, internalized, not fake performance, whether
Right.
it's
And then there was
spiritual or what are you doing between this beat and this beat? Yeah.
right. And then there was another aspect where I had a professor. One of my professors was, well, my two mentors. One was Joseph A. Walker, who was the first Black man to win a Tony Award for writing. He wrote The River Niger, which was a Broadway play in the 70s. He was one of my professors. And then another one was Al Freeman Jr., who was an actor he was on One Life to Live. He played Elijah Muhammad in Malcolm X, Spike Lee's movie. He was an actor for many, many years publicly, and he was one of my professors. So Joe Walker, his approach to acting was all Afrocentric, from the griot, the ritual point of view of acting, how it how it impacts the community, your role as a storyteller in the community. That was Joe Walker. Voodoo rituals, rites, all kind of things. We did shows about all of that. And then there was Al, who really taught me about how you stay your core as an actor, whether your medium is on the stage or in film. And one of the things he talked about was the movement of thought, and how on the stage you have to show what you're thinking so the audience can see it. But on film, you just have to think it because the camera will catch it. And so all of those professors combined, and different things really led me to where I feel like I'm comfortable with, this is my style, that I have a way that I approach the craft, which is constructed from all that input.
And you have
So
done other stage work, of course, at Ensemble. You've done film work too. You were in a movie that sounds really interesting called I Voted. What was that? Was that
ah, it's great, and I hope it gets a distribution soon. We'll see. It's won several awards at different
yeah.
film festivals, but it's a wonderful premise. And the premise is it takes place at a polling location. And so the whole film takes place inside like a school gymnasium, where the polling booths are set up. And so during the voting process, the city goes on lockdown. There's some crisis going on in the city. We don't know what it is, but the city's on lockdown. And so everybody in the polling location is locked together until further notice. And of course, they're not supposed to discuss politics and what have you. But as time goes on, you can't keep the conversations silent. And ultimately, it becomes a powder keg in this voting location that results in horrible violence,
Oh.
actually.
Oh, I thought this was a comedy, but leak about. Okay, fine.
It starts off that way. It starts off light, kind of situational comedy, different points of view, but it turns. And when it turns, it turns very ugly. And it's such a strong piece about our current political state. I mean, because the two factions, my character, for example, he's the peacemaker. Throughout the entire film, he's trying to be the peacemaker between the two sides who are getting increasingly combative. But every character has like a secret. And so my character's secret is that he is a Muslim, but he is hiding that. Since 9/11, he's decided to hide that. And so his girls are not being raised as Muslim, but his wife is a Muslim, and they practice their faith pretty much in private. And he doesn't use his birth name. And so what he and his neighbor are kind of the voting like the poll watchers, who work at the polling location.
Yeah.
And so they've been friends for 10 years. The neighbor is a very conservative white man, ex-military. And it comes out in this discussion that I am a Muslim and I've been hiding this. So every character's secret kind of comes out. And it's really powerful. It's really powerful.
Speaking of politics, let's go there a little bit, because are you in Houston now, or are you in New York already? You're in?
I'm in Houston.
Yeah.
I live in Houston, and I'm going to New York next week. I'll be flying up. But I'm living in Houston.
You're living and have for many, live and work and teach there. So politically, we think of Texas as being, because of your governor and all of this, a certain conservative-ish, Trump-ish kind of way. I imagine this doesn't jibe necessarily with your personal political convictions. So how do you navigate being, an actor and a person in Texas and Houston that is not where you are mentally at?
Well, I would say this about Houston. It is the most diverse city in the country. And I mean, it's the fourth largest, but it's very diverse. And I would say maybe a little bit less red than other cities in Texas.
Well, Austin can go bluish, and funny don't look bluish, well. But yeah,
you're right.
Yeah,
bluish, yes, but it still is what it is, and yes, it's Texas. It's where we grew up. It's Texas, so I'm very familiar with that attitude and that. Like I brought up growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood, so I've always kind of been, we wear the mask, as James Weldon Johnson said, and dealing with that duality. I've always, all my life, had to deal with that, seeing people, for what they are or what they think they are, but then, growing up with people who might tell derogatory Black jokes, but then say to me, "Oh, but not you, you're different." Or you talk different, so I've grown up with that.
This is exactly what will be saying about you this whole week when I'm promoting this. I'm kidding.
He's not like them. Yeah, and I grew up with that, and so I've seen that. So like now in our present day, under the present president, I remember when he was first elected. And there were people, friends of mine, who were so shocked and in disbelief. I was not in disbelief, because I knew after 2 terms of President Obama, I was like, the pendulum has to swing back. This country cannot take this. We're going to swing back. Now, I didn't know it was going to be quite a retrograde swing back as it has become, but I knew that was coming. And when you see the response of people, when you see all of the racism that's bubbling up, that's been given permission now in this country, I see it as beyond Trump. Because to me, the real issue is he got there. Now you can say he cheated, or I'm not going to have that conversation. However, he got there. There were enough people supporting him and still believing his lies. It was like he's somebody that literally it doesn't matter. I was talking to a friend of mine about the State of the Union last night. I'm like, well, I'm not going to watch it. All he does is lie. And then when you confront him on his lies, he just calls that fake news. There's no way to deal with somebody like that. So
well, that's like, a politician. Every politician is going to say what, especially in a State of the Union address. But I do hear what you're saying. So
yeah.
Have you, not to bring up ugly, but the play itself is ugly and the film is ugly. So, I mean, you've experienced direct, overt racism in your life as a person and a performer?
Yes. Certainly as a person, direct. I mean, I remember, again, being maybe 10 or younger. My brother and I used to get chased from school. We would get chased from school. We had brick thrown through our window with a message taped around it. And this wasn't the 60s. I grew up in, I was born in 68, but I grew up in 70s, 80s, so we got bricks through our window. We were chased from school. And I remember my dad, when we told him about how we were getting chased from school, he told us to stop running, which as a child, I could not understand that. I was like, well, then they'll catch us if we stop running. He's like, no, you don't be afraid. Don't run. They won't chase you if you don't run. So I thought, no, they'll catch us. I couldn't understand what he was saying. And then, but when we got that brick thrown through the window, I remember my dad ran out the house and he chased them down. and he chased them down all the way to their house. And literally, so there were things like that. I remember being in elementary school, kids used to, one kid, he used to always pretend to sneeze. And then he would, chew, he would say a racial derogative in the middle of his sneeze. That was like his joke. And everybody would laugh. I remember in high school.
Well, to be fair, he did have.
I was already acting,
Yeah, no, but to be fair, that kid did have Tourette's, so he gets a clean bill.
Well,
just kidding. It's
yes,
timely
that's
joke.
funny because literally last night I was just saying that to another friend of mine. I was like, "There's going to be a whole lot of undiagnosed cases of Tourette's that are about to come out right now." We have the new crutch, baby. It's Tourette's.
Hey, black. Okay.
I want to say. Yeah, exactly. So it is timely, and I have experienced that. And I remember a kid in high school. I was acting, and there was an article about me in the yearbook, and blah blah blah. I was kind of popular, and I was always. This is maybe the most telling thing that it just hit me. I was known for my smile, always smiling.
Yeah.
And I remember one day walking down the hallway, and I was in student government, and one of the kids, my high school in particular, not only was it predominantly white, but at that time was predominantly Jewish. And the area where it was in Houston called Meyerland, that whole area was Jewish. My school was predominantly Jewish. And so this kid, David Middleman, I'll never forget, I'm walking down the hall, and this was one particular day I wasn't smiling. For whatever reason, I was just, not putting on the...
Yeah.
And so he said, Jason, what's wrong? Why don't you flash your big black smile? And I remember thinking, I didn't say anything, but I remember thinking at the time, my smile is whiter than yours.
Yeah.
My smile is not black. My smile is white.
Yeah, mine is when I eat Oreo cookies. There are no, I eat three Oreo cookies. Right? It's just, it's awful horrible.
It's a mess.
Yeah. And I never brush nor floss, so it stays that way for days. It's horrifying. Yeah. Bad times. Funny. But yeah. But
that reminds me, actually, what you just said is so funny. There's a time in the play in Tide when my character, when he starts hearing this ancient song from Africa in his head, doesn't know where it's coming from. He hears it every time he turns on the water. So every time he hears water, it's like the waters of the Middle Passage calling him back to Africa, right? So because he gets tired of hearing the song in his head, he stops bathing, brushing his teeth. Oh. He doesn't want to hear any water. And so, he becomes extremely, over the course of 3 weeks, a little funky.
He doesn't flush
a
toilet.
That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah. Oh,
He's not blushing and brushing and flossing or washing or anything. And so at one point he asks his wife, after maybe 3 weeks of this, to draw him up a bath. And she can't believe it, that he's, it's a sign of him coming back a bit. And that's when he first decides to get in the tub and to embrace the ancestors' song and learn it for the first time. And so it's a really beautiful
it just makes me very happy now that one of your professors at Howard wasn't method, because then he's for 3 weeks now, no flushing, no bathing, no anything, just roll around in your own fecal matter, and that's how you get into the parts. If Brando could do it, if De Niro could do it, Jason E. Carmichael, he can definitely.
That's exactly right.
Do you go by, is it, because sometimes I see Jason E. Carmichael, is the E there because of equity? There's another Jason Carmichael, and I can pop the E in there?
Well, yes, that is true, but E is also, my middle name is Eugene. which is my father's name.
Oh.
And so when I found out and I lived in Los Angeles for maybe 20 years. So when I was in LA, actually, it wasn't Equity, it was SAG. At the time, I was joining the Screen Actors Guild, and there was another Jason Carmichael. And so that's when I adopted my middle initial, Jason E. Carmichael. And then my father subsequently has passed. That's what actually brought me back to Houston after living in Los Angeles for 20 years.
Oh.
My mom was my dad's main caregiver, and then she got breast cancer. So even though I have another brother here in Houston, they'd wanted me to come back for a while. I came back and kind of thought I would just be home for a while, and then I'd go back to LA. But things actually have gone very well in Houston, so I've just, I've stayed here. But
and you teach. You are teaching children and young people performance. Is that your where and how and yeah?
Actually,
no.
Mainly, I don't teach anymore.
Oh. That's the most religious moment of the whole entire. Yes.
Thank you, Lord. But I did for a long time. But when I started teaching performance, I taught Shakespeare specifically to elementary school kids and middle school kids, because I had this whole program where I believed that the younger you introduce kids to Shakespeare, the better, because by the time they get to high school, when it's in the curriculum, they're so caught up by the way of speaking that they kind of miss the story and the fun and the rhythm and the rhyme and the wizards and the witches and all that stuff. So I used to teach Shakespeare to kids, and then that kind of led to ultimately when I became a regular English teacher in middle school. So I did not teach very much performance once I became a regular teacher. I always had my English students do a play every year, but I was not the theater teacher. So I taught English for a long time in Los Angeles. And then when I moved back to Houston, I had been told that the LA credential, that LA and New York teaching credentials were reciprocal all over the world, all over the country. That's what I told.
Yeah.
But when I moved back to Texas, that had changed. And
so
I wasn't
you need a whole new
back.
license if you wanted to. Yes.
Exactly. And I said, I'm not doing that. So I worked at a charter school for a while, where I had my sole responsibility for a whole year was to be with this second grade student who had
one student
who had extremely intense anger management issues.
I have no idea what the hell that is like. Yeah.
Right. He had broken the principal's nose. He had I'm talking about extreme, broken laptops, brandished scissors on teachers. He'd stabbed a student with a pencil. I mean, he'd thrown his sister down the stairs, second grade. And so my whole job was to be with this boy.
And just sit on him. Just 8 hours, let him get up to pee and eat lunch, and then just sit on him.
Literally. I had to take a special course to learn how to hold him if he had an outbreak. Yeah. And it was very intense. And I remember because like his parents, they didn't want to give him medication. The mother's response was she beat him all the time. The father would never touch him, but he was afraid of him. So it's like the father didn't have any control.
The father was afraid of the child, or vice versa?
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
The father was afraid of the child. And he didn't think the response was to be physical with the child, but the mother did. The mother was like, we're going to beat it out of him. The father just kind of retreated. And so it was he would come and talk to me after school and just break down into tears. I got very close with the family. They ultimately decided to put him on medication. And maybe after about 3 months, it took when he started to trust me and he got better. And just recently I saw the principal who had her nose broken from that school. And it's been about 10 years when I first got back to Houston. And that boy graduated from high school. And that was like one of my proudest moments as a teacher. Because I thought that boy's going to be dead or in jail. There's no way he's going to survive. Of course, he's just too violent.
He could have gotten a diploma because everybody was afraid not to give him an A.
It could have been.
It's like,
somehow he got through.
So however he did it.
He got through it.
No, not B-, not B-. Kidding. God bless you. I mean, I tried
Yeah,
tried teaching young. Please don't even. I can't. I can't even teach 70-year-olds, let alone. But we are talking with Jason E. for Eugene Carmichael, whom you can see. Notice the use of whom you can
I
see
did.
in the play Tide, which is being done at the Alpha Omega Studio in New York. It's 70 East 4th Street, so it's around where like New York Theater Workshop is, and what else? La Mama's kind of down in that
I think
area too.
NYU is not too far from there.
Yeah, and a couple well part NYU is everywhere. NYU owns
Oh,
half of
okay.
Greenwich Village.
There
It's
you go.
it's
There
yeah.
you go.
You cough and you're hitting an NYU student there. But it's happening from March 6th to March 22nd. So you're going to want to get tickets. Obviously, you're going to want to see this man act, and you're going to want to see this particular play. So our last question for you, Jason E. Carmichael, is: do you have a particular favorite Shakespeare play?
Yes, I do. And it's a close battle, but my favorite, I would have to say, is The Tempest.
Cymbeline. No, I'm kidding. What was that?
Yeah, which I love too. I love Cymbeline too. The Tempest is probably number one for me. Number two, Antony and Cleopatra,
Hmm.
and number three, Othello. But I also love very much Titus Andronicus,
Oh,
which is so violent it's never produced. But about Shakespeare, when I was teaching Shakespeare, I had my curriculum that I had, which I called Moor Shakespeare, Moor, Moor Shakespeare. And so I pulled the Moors from Titus Andronicus, Aaron the Moor, of course, Othello, and then the Prince of Morocco from Merchant of Venice, and some other characters. I would use Caliban because he was a slave and different. So I would pull the different, what I would say, the black characters from Shakespeare. And I used to teach them this way. And so, but I always loved, before I even knew it was Shakespeare's last play, The Tempest always touched me. Midsummer Night's Dream, before I was teaching Shakespeare, we used to perform. I was with a traveling troupe, and we performed, Shakespeare all over Los Angeles, all over California, for kids. And so, of course, Midsummer Night's Dream was our big. Everybody wanted to see Midsummer Night's Dream. We did it all the time. But to me, The Tempest has even more magic, and I love the way it deals with colonialism, which is really what's the underbelly of that, and I love that at the end of it, Prospero, he drowns his book. And to me, that's like, it's all there. You've got some Romeo and Juliet with the young lovers. You've got the Caliban and Ariel. You've got the magic from Prospero. So that's a favorite. Antony and Cleopatra, I love because, well, I love the majesty of, you've got Rome and you've got Egypt, and you've got all of the spectacle of both of those places, and you have Cleopatra, which I think is Shakespeare's strongest female character, and I love that. Like I said, Titus, Aaron the Moor. There's a speech that he makes at the end when he's impregnated Queen Tamara, and he's done it intentionally because of how he feels he's been treated, as a black man in this society. And I'm going to pass down this stain through the generations. That's my victory. My victory over the queen is this child. And so right before they kill him, he says, I'll tell you everything you want to know, but do not harm my son. My son will live. And it just so happens that my son, who's about to be 26, which is crazy, he lives in Belgium. His mother is Belgian. And so we met in Los Angeles. And so, I have a very specific relationship. And at the time we were together, I did Othello in Los Angeles and Aaron the Moor. And I've never done Aaron the Moor, but it was very representative of not what I went through. I didn't kill my son's mother.
Yeah, that's
but
good. Thank God. This is
what
a
I
good thing.
thought about it. But that's a joke. That's a
I
joke.
know, I know.
I've got the rhythm now, so I.
You stood outside the house, you looked, but then a memory of your kid. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I actually, I'll tell you this. I wrote a kind of a parody back when I was living in Los Angeles when the O.J. Simpson trial, all that was happening, and I, I was like, it's Ojello. That's all I could think was Ojello, because I was like, here it is. This is it exactly. You know how modern and relevant is Shakespeare that we can still today look at his plays and draw these parallels to things that are happening right now. I just saw, I can't remember which, I think it was Stephen Colbert's show. Ian McKellen was just on there and he was reading a monologue. I don't know, I didn't hear the play that it was from, but it was all about immigration. And uh, it, if you are willing to put these people out of your country, are you willing to be the one who's put out of the next country when your ruler puts you out? How, and so again, it's like right now, it's still so relevant. So that's why I love Shakespeare. I have a soft spot for that. And I had a fifth grade teacher who introduced me to Shakespeare and was one of those life changers. Before I got to Howard, that teacher was a real life changer for me.
I get the feeling that you changed a lot of students in terms of maybe not. Well, yeah, you did change that crazy, violent 2-year-old who, by the way, was just indicted for murder. But we won't go there. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But all these other kids that you got to love Shakespeare and got to do it playing your English classes and all that. I'm guessing that you affected
Yes.
more than just a couple of
It's
young people.
that's probably the most beautiful thing. I have students that have reached out to me on Facebook that I had never thought that student listened to anything I ever said. And they're, successful now. One that was just off Broadway. I mean, I was like, my God. So that is the greatest thing. I mean, I tease how happy I am not to be teaching anymore. But that, and then the last 7 years of my teaching, when I was here back in Houston, I was in charge of the in-school suspension at a middle school. So literally, I had the worst kids every day, all day. I had my window smashed out of my car. I had a kid threaten me with a knife. I mean, all kinds of things. But even in that, I remember I saw one of my former ISS students at the bank a couple of weeks ago. They were a teller now, and they were talking. I was like, they got you in charge of the money? Oh my God. But she had, she'd made it, and she remembered, she's like, oh, Mr. Carmichael, after being in your ISS class, I didn't want to be in ISS ever again because I ran a tight ship. But even in that environment, there are still students that I was able
But I
to
will
touch,
say
and that's a
that
great
girl
thing.
also had a really great math teacher, so she figured out how to skim $5 off every thousand that the bank wouldn't see. So she's doing really, really well.
Exactly.
Thanks
She's
to
doing great.
I'm kidding. So Jason E. Carmichael, last thing to go see him, please, in the play Tide by Crystal Ray. It is happening at Alpha Omega Studios on East 4th Street, running from March 6th to March 22nd. Please get your tickets, please, because it sounds absolutely great. You're absolutely great. It has been an honor and a joy to have you in the neighborhood. Jason, thank you, and shalom to you.
Shalom, my pleasure. Thank you very much. Peace.